It's remarkable how a single moment can alter everything. One message, one night, one decision. I should have realized something was wrong that day, but how do you see the monster within your friend? I used to believe Max was just like the rest of us, normal, until that night. I had known Max since middle school. We were not best friends, but we ran in the same group. Jimmy and I, despite our close friendship, often stayed out after school, talking about trivial topics, females, and nothing significant, but Max. Recently, something about him appeared wrong. It began with tiny things. Max became strangely silent whenever Jimmy was around. I assumed he was just dealing with teenage drama. I didn't think much about it at first. My phone buzzed as I was playing GTA 5 on my PlayStation 4. When I received the message, I did not think twice. Max and Jimmy had been my buddies for many years. We had our moments, but this was just another random night out hanging out, joking about, and possibly playing video games, so I assumed Max was always a little different, more intense, but that's just Max, right? I greeted Jimmy, and we started walking towards Max. Do you believe Max is serious about a huge surprise? He's always full of it. Jimmy often said that was how he was. He could laugh through anything and brush off any tension, but even he couldn't disguise how strange things had gotten between Max and us recently. Looking back, I believe Jimmy felt something I didn't want to. You finally prepared for an unforgettable experience. When I came in, it was as if a weight had been placed on my shoulders. The air was oppressive. Max didn't say much, while Jimmy, who was often the life of the party, sat there browsing through his phone. It didn't feel like a hangout, more like something was about to go wrong. Jimmy was only trying to keep things normal, but Max barely said anything. I suspected something was going on between him and Jimmy, possibly regarding that girl Alexa, but I didn't know the whole story. Not then. Let us play a game. The game is to murder you. While saying this, he pointed the rifle toward Jimmy. When I saw it, I froze. It felt as if time had stopped. I recall thinking, this must be a prank, right? It can't be genuine. But then I noticed Max's face. He was not playing around. Max's speech was wrong, distant, like he were somewhere else and we couldn't see him. I did not see it. God, I didn't see it. You find it funny, don't you? Always act as if you're better. I didn't notice it at first, but Max's eyes altered when he said it, like if something snapped inside of him. Max, what the hell, man? This is not humorous. What the hell are you on about, man? Do you believe you can take her from me? It was like a nightmare. Only the Real Max shot him like that. There was no shouting, arguing, or anything. He simply pulled the trigger. I was frozen. I expected Jimmy to come out of the water laughing as a prank, but he did not. He could not. The room became silent. Jimmy, who had just laughed with us a few days before, was now lying still. My brain couldn't understand what had just happened, and then Max did something even worse. Instead of fleeing or panicking, he took out his phone, opened Snapchat, and shot a picture of Jimmy's lifeless body. That's when I understood Max was no longer the same person I knew. He was a stranger, a monster. I didn't believe I'd see him again, but I did throughout the trial. He didn't flinch or react when they played the footage, which he had uploaded online for everyone to watch, as if Jimmy's life was merely for entertainment. Jimmy is gone. Max is gone, and I'm left with only memories and nightmares. Every time I hear a Snapchat notification, I feel sick. I can't change what I witnessed. I can't undo what Max became. You think you know your pals and can trust them, but sometimes the true monsters are standing right next to you, waiting for the best opportunity to strike. The story was inspired by a tragic tragedy that occurred in February 2015. Maxwell Morton, 16, shot and killed his friend Jimmy Patrick in a small Pennsylvania village. The two teenagers were supposedly pals, but difficulties arose due to envy, particularly over a female. On the night of the crime, Maxwell invited Jimmy over under false pretenses. When Jimmy arrived, Maxwell shot him in the head. Disturbingly, after murdering Jimmy, Morton took a selfie with his lifeless body and forwarded it to pals on Snapchat. A stunned recipient saved the photo and submitted it to the authorities, prompting Maxwell's arrest. He was later found guilty of third-degree murder and charged accordingly. It was 6 p.m., and I was with my buddy, Abby. We both waited. It was weird to have two little children alone in Riley Park as the sun sank and he hadn't arrived yet. Mr. Jake was an extremely polite and kind individual. He was a man of faith, or so he claimed, and he frequently sent me money to buy items. He spoiled me a lot, which is not something many men do. He despised young guys, believing they were selfish and unkind. Mr. Jake was what every woman should have, and I was overjoyed that he had never asked me out since we started communicating on Snapchat. Sure, he lived far away, but he sent me money to visit a national park. I thought that would be an excellent opportunity. I dressed as pretty as I could in cute, but not too spectacular clothing so my folks wouldn't realize it was a secret. I left early, telling them I was going to see a buddy. That's how I came to this point. Is he actually going to come? As soon as he said that, we heard a car drive up. It was an ancient car, and I had no idea what model it was. Mr. Jake got out of the automobile wearing blue pants, a blue jacket, and a cap. Mr. Jake was 45 years old, and something about him made me uneasy right away, but Abby and I decided to ignore it. We're just being paranoid, I told myself repeatedly. He smiled sheepishly at us and added, "Let's head down the hill." We followed him through the trees, going deeper and deeper into the forest. The farther we traveled, the further away the familiar paths appeared to be, and the mist began to wrap everything around us. The air was so calm that our breath appeared to ricochet off the trees. He remained silent as the sun set. Where was the friendliness and warmth? I worried if everything was in the chat. Worst of all, he didn't explain why he had invited me. Jake began to talk in a quiet voice, but his tone was unusually threatening. He began to say bizarre things about how he knew the region and how others frequented the park for rituals. People in this park undertake ceremonies in which they kill and consume others. My heart started to race. What type of joke is this? I inquired cautiously, but he only stared at me with that smile that appeared much more sinister at the time. Everything changed. He came to a complete stop in his tracks. He stared at us out of the corner of his eye, and that expression, that emptiness, that lifelessness, stated they asked me to kill you for them. I had an overpowering want to flee, but I was more concerned about what would happen if we did. My phone did not even have a signal. Abby and I exchanged horrified looks as we realized we were too far from the park and no one could help us. We tried to return, but it was too late. He lunged at Abby, grabbed her arms, and pulled her to the ground. He choked Abby with his bare hands. They were battling on the ground. Abby's pupils curled up as she gasped for air. He got a knife from his jacket pocket and stabbed her throat repeatedly. His expression was one of fury. This happened so fast that I didn't have time to respond. I was astonished and afraid. He glared at me with wicked eyes. That's when I came to my senses. I raced as fast as I could, just hearing the sound of his footsteps behind me. I was writhing and screaming as he pursued me. I felt as if catch me at any moment. The terror made me trip over roots, wring my skin as the bushes tried to stop me. I was almost out, so close to getting away, but he caught me. He was very excited and said, "They'll be happy to have you." Who was he talking about? I wondered as I continued to shout, hoping someone would hear me. Suddenly some people approached. I was relieved, but only for a few seconds because one of them was carrying Abby on his shoulders. I only heard, "Don't kill the other one." What good is the sacrifice? This situation got to me, and I passed out. I didn't understand anything. When I woke up, I was tied in the middle of the forest. I was lying on a table, my hands tied, and they were all around me. There were so many men, and one of them was licking my legs. It was a cult that had massacred Abby's body. They were standing around me. I tried to get free, but I couldn't, and they stabbed me in the leg. I tried to scream, but I couldn't because my mouth was tied. They kept stabbing me in my legs and arms, and one of them too. I saw the pain was unbearable. I felt myself losing consciousness, but then suddenly I experienced a moment of relief. The pain was gone. It was soothing. I thought I was dead, but I wasn't. They had cut off my legs and sewn me up. That would be my life from then on. The story was inspired by the real case involving a 24-year-old man who was arrested in Delhi, Indiana, after he took two 15-year-old girls into the woods. After meeting them on Snapchat, the incident happened near the Manon High Bridge. Trail, the site where Libby German and Abby Williams were murdered in 2017. Police received a call reporting the man who claimed he thought the girls were 19. When officers arrived, they found him smoking cannabis with the girls in a wooded area. As for the murder of Libby and Abby, they were found dead after a hike in February 2017. Libby had posted a photo on Snapchat capturing images of a mysterious man nicknamed Bridge Guy who became key to the investigation, although a man called Richard Allen was arrested in 2022 and charged with the murders. His trial had been delayed until October 2024. His lawyers have put forward a theory of ritual sacrifice by a nationalist sect called the Odinists, further complicating the case. I never thought I'd be scared of my own phone, but now every time I get a Snapchat notification my heart races. It all started a few months ago when my best friend showed me some messages he'd been getting. We were hanging out in his room after school when he suddenly got real quiet and held out his phone. The screen showed a Snapchat from someone called Talon the Goon. It was a video of a kid getting punched in the face, then kicked while he was down. The caption read, "Who's next?" I felt sick watching it. When I asked Preston who these guys were, he just shrugged, but I could see he was worried. He told me they apparently called themselves the Gilbert Goons, and they were from our school and others around here. Apparently they just hurt people for fun. Over the next few weeks, he kept getting more snaps like this. Sometimes it was videos of fights, other times pictures of brass knuckles or guns with scary captions. We couldn't do anything. If we turned into snitches, they'd beat us up or something, so we just carried on like nothing happened. A week before Halloween, we got a snap about a party nearby, and there was going to be free drinks, so my pal and I, obviously, when I picked him up in my old Corolla, he was dressed as a basketball player, and I had on this cheap vampire costume. The party was insane. When we got there, hundreds of kids, most in costume, music blasting, the smell of weed and booze everywhere. We hung out near the snack table for a while talking to some kids from school, but then I saw my friend tense up. I followed his gaze and saw a group of older guys walk in. They weren't in costume, just jeans and hoodies, but the way other kids cleared a path for them, I wasn't realizing what was happening. We tried to leave, but before we could, one of them stepped in front of us. I recognized him from some of the snaps. Trenton Billy, one of the ringleaders, grabbed my friend's arm when we tried to go around him. I tried to defend him, but Tristan only gazed at me with cold, hard eyes. He explained that my friend needed to speak with him briefly. The next thing I know, two more guys were behind us, shoving us into the garden. Once we were outside, away from everyone else, everything occurred so quickly. Tristan shoved my guy to the ground and yelled at him for ignoring them. My brother tried to settle things down, but Tristan was not having it. He punched him hard and knocked him down. I tried to help, but someone stopped me. I had to stand there and watch the guys beat him up. The sound of their fists and feet pounding him was horrific. My boy's body quivering with each blow, as if that was going to stay with me forever. I can't tell you how long it lasted. It felt like hours. But finally, I heard one of them say, "He's out." They left him there, lying on the ground, motionless. There was blood on his face and all over his costume. Then Tristan, the smug jerk, looked right at me and grinned, saying, "Your turn next, vampire boy," before they just casually walked away like it was no big deal, like it didn't even matter. As soon as they were gone, I ran over to my pal, trying to shake him awake, but he didn't move. My hands were shaking so badly when I called 911, and I remember just sitting there holding his head in my lap, crying, begging him to wake up, but he didn't. The next couple of days were a blur. It was a photo of him in his hospital bed, and it was obvious that whoever took it did not have permission. The caption, "Your next vampire boy." The events described are based on a real tragedy in Queen Creek, Arizona, a suburb southeast of Phoenix, on October 28, 2023. 16-year-old Preston Lord was attacked at a Halloween party. Preston, a sophomore and basketball player, attended the party with his teammates, advertised on Snapchat as a Halloween costume rager with free alcohol. It drew over 200 teens from local high schools during the party. Preston and his friends were confronted by a group of older boys after one friend recorded a fight. Tensions escalated, and Preston was knocked unconscious by Talon Renner, and others continued beating him until they fled. Witnesses saw someone dance on Preston before he was dragged from the road. Police found Preston with life-threatening injuries. He passed away. 2 days later, the group responsible, known as the Gilbert Goons, had been involved in violent acts since 2022, sharing videos on social media like Snapchat. 7 individuals, Tristan Billy, 18, Jacob Messner, 17, Taylor Sherman, 19, Talon Renner, 17, Dominic Turner, 20, William Owen Hines, 18, and Talon Vigil had been charged with first-degree murder and kidnapping. They have all pleaded not guilty, with the trial set for July 2025 due to the large volume of evidence.